The EA Sports college football video game is almost here, and there are 3 Miami Hurricanes set to debut with elite ratings. One of them is indisputable. Another is a pleasant surprise from where I sit, and the third is making bitter exes lose their minds.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Postgame on the Miami Hurricanes radio network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code Locked On College at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. On this Locked On Canes, we'll talk 2 of the Miami Hurricanes' greatest quarterbacks of all time, Cam Ward versus Ken Dorsey. Why? You'll find out. Miami's recruiting progress. That amazing run that Miami had at the end of June. It's a few days ago, feels like a few weeks ago. There's a lot of negativity. We'll talk about the way things are trending right now. But folks, we are literally a week away from the full release of EA Sports College Football 26. For those who get your hands on the early release, you'll have it in about 4 days. The rest of us are going to have it in 1 week's time on July 10th. And everyone wants to know, are they giving respect to our Miami Hurricanes? I think Miami is like the 11th overall graded team right now on the game, which is pretty good. But in terms of individuals, which players are going to help you guys win your games and win your championships this coming year? So here are the 3 highest graded Miami Hurricanes players on the new video game. The first of which, I mentioned at the top, indisputable. Francis Mauigoa, CC, Miami's starting right tackle. This guy is going to be a first-round draft pick. The question is going to be, how high in that first round is he going to go? CC last season allowed just 1 sack in 576 pass blocking snaps a year ago. He actually has 2 years of eligibility left if he chooses to use them both. I wouldn't blame him if he doesn't, but I'd love it if he did play for 2 more seasons at Miami. But it's one of the worst kept secrets out there. Francis Mauigoa is going to be one of the best overall players in America this coming season, and he's going to be anchoring that Miami Hurricanes offensive line. He's got a 93 grade. He's actually a top 10 player in the entire video game, number 9 on the game with a 93 overall rating. That is CC. So he leads the way. No surprise. I think he's probably going to be the highest Hurricane drafted this coming season. We'll talk about what would have to happen for that not to be the case. But Francis Mauigoa at a 93 grade. Here's the one that I thought was a pleasant surprise from where I sit. Ruben Hurricane Bain is graded at a 92 overall. And the reason why I'm surprised is so many of the narratives coming off of last year for the non-ball watchers, right? The people who only look at what your stats look like at the end of the year. We're like, oh, what happened to Bain? You never hear about him. He's not getting sacks the way that he used to. Did he fall off? Did this guy regress? Did he forget how to play? Thankfully, who's not overlooking Ruben Bain? The folks at EA Sports and, hopefully the NFL draft scouts in a year or 2. Again, I'd like to see Bain stay for his final season if he has the opportunity to do so. So Ruben Bain, 92 overall. His awareness is at a 95. Play recognition, 95. Power moves, 95. Very powerful edge rusher. And his pursuit are 94. Those are his top attributes. And again, so people talked about, did Bain fall off last year? Those who actually understand the context and watch Miami football last year, that Bain was literally injured for the majority of the season and missed almost half of the season. And despite that, he finished the year in just 238 pass rushing snaps. He finished with 28 quarterback pressures and 3.5 sacks. The year prior as a true freshman, when he was healthy for the entire year, he had 45 pressures and 9 sacks. So I think Ruben can probably get back to those type of numbers once he gets into this true junior season. I think somebody's going to reach double-digit sacks for Miami. Why not Bain? So, those who actually understand, not only was Miami's defense overall really bad last year, but Ruben was nursing an injury for the vast majority of the season. He's going to have a bounce back year, and EA Sports respects him enough to give him that 92 grade, because anything over a 90 is elite. Now, the third Miami player who gets an over 90 grade shouldn't be a surprise, yet it's still a big-time devising talking point around the country. Miami Hurricanes starting quarterback Carson Beck grades out at 91 overall, an elite grade on the upcoming EA Sports game, with his highest attributes being his play-action passing, which is completely elite at 98. His awareness is at a 96. His throwing power is at a 92. And, let's not forget, Carson Beck, a year ago, heading into the 2024 season where he dipped a little bit. Georgia dipped a little bit offensively last year. But heading into last year, Carson Beck was preseason Heisman Trophy favorite and was getting chatter as a potential future number 1 overall NFL pick. Things didn't go as well for him last season. He left Georgia for Miami, which is always going to change your narrative, and people are talking about Beck in a different way. So when you start to see these social media posts now out there about Beck getting that 91 overall grade on EA Sports, you see comments like, too high, or, but he's a turnover machine, but he's got no leadership. That was something, a little salt that was thrown by, former Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray, who didn't actually play with Beck, but, keeps up with the team pretty closely, as a lot of former players do. Mentioned he's not so sure about the maturity and the leadership, and he heard there were rifts in the locker room last year. So far, Carson Beck's new teammates at Miami say otherwise. I recall Mark Fletcher, who is part of the leadership council at Miami, having really nice things to say about Beck. CJ Daniels and JoJo Trader at receiver, Elijah Lofton at tight end, Inez Cooper, who's another one of Miami's leaders on the offensive line, all feeling like Beck brings that stuff to the table. But Carson Beck is divisive. So when I talk about the bitter X's losing their minds, I'm not talking about a Cavender twin. I'm talking about the bitter X's that are the Georgia Bulldogs football fans, because, for as much as they loved him when he was there, when Beck decided to leave, go in a different direction, he's become public enemy number 1 for a lot of them. But you know what? Carson Beck's reputation and, the us against the world mentality that we have down here, he's going to fit in perfectly as a Miami Hurricane, because we all know what Beck is capable of doing. And yeah, last year, I know the numbers weren't as good, but he was still flirting with 3,500 passing yards last season, 28 touchdowns thrown last year. He still had, by most every measure, a really, really good 2024 season, just dipped a little bit from 2023. And, the thing about Beck that I guess would be fair is to wonder, how's his health going, right? Recovering from the offseason elbow surgery, but he has met and exceeded every benchmark physically. He's out there throwing now offseason with 0 restrictions. He's going to be ready for, quote unquote fall camp, for training camp, which is going to start in less than a month, guys. I can't believe it's July. I mean, it's almost the 4th of July. Training camp usually starts final few days of July. So later this month, we're going to be having, about as close as you get to real football before August 31st. We're going to be getting that on Green Tree. So players with elite grades on EA Sports College Football: Carson Beck at a 91, Ruben Hurricane Bain at a 92, Francis Mauigoa at a 93. I'd like to know, for Miami to be a contender this year, right, a team that can make it into the college football playoff and try to make a run at that, who else needs to end up with elite grades this year? Because even if some of these other players are not getting that love preseason, who needs to elevate their ratings and their grades as the season goes on? I will let you know, and we'll talk about our recruiting progress as well, because there are a couple of announcements that are going to be going down the next couple of days involving players Miami is recruiting. Some of these will not go Miami's way. We'll keep you locked right here on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Folks, I'm so glad that I found Monarch Money and Monarch Money found me. We have found each other, and it's a beautiful romance. You ever wish managing your money felt easier? I did. With Monarch Money, it can and it does. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch Money puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. Guys, a big goal of mine when I started using Monarch several months ago, I want to be able to confidently and consistently pay down my credit card debt. And it's really hard to do that unless you're budgeting impeccably. And Monarch helps me do that. It helps me track my spending. It helps me manage money with my wife and so much more. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. If you want to take your everydayer experience to another level, sign up and become a Locked On Canes insider. I include a link in the show description below. When you become a Locked On Canes insider, you're getting text messages directly from my phone to yours and vice versa with breaking news, recruiting scoops, good or bad, one-on-one questions and answers. Try it free for 14 days. Click the link below. If you like it, after 14 days, you can opt in for $4.99 a month, give you a lot of added value on there on the Locked On Canes Insiders chat. All right, so the Hurricanes have 3 players. I mean, if you're really bullish on Miami, you say just 3 that have elite grades on the new EA Sports video game, which is coming out in a week. Other players who need, I think, to step up and earn 91 or higher grades. I think you've got to give me at least one of Miami's wide receivers breaking out and standing taller than their grades would indicate. JoJo Trader, I think, is the candidate to be the top dog because he had a really good spring. And let's not forget, I mean, Trader, who's entering his second year, this guy was the second rated receiver in the entire state of Florida coming out of high school. Number 1 was Jeremiah Smith. He was number 2 behind that guy. They're good friends, played at the same high school. I think JoJo can break out, or maybe CJ Daniels coming over from LSU. I think one of Miami's receivers has to get above 90 this year. Elijah Lofton at tight end. I think he can and hopefully will get above 90 throughout the season. You got to have, I think, at least one defensive tackle get over that as well. Justin Scott, Ahmad Moten, those are a couple of candidates there. Ahmad had a really good second half of the season last year. Justin Scott is entering his second year. He was really good in spring. We'll see if he follows that up in fall. I think he will. Miami, when Miami's great, they always have at least one elite safety, if not 2. Maybe this is the year Zechariah Poyser dominates and he gets himself a 90-plus grade on the video game. I think Zechariah Poyser had an awesome spring. He could be ready to dominate. And let's not forget special teams. Kick returning. Miami's got Keelan Marion now, who returned 2 kickoffs to the house last year at BYU. And by the way, side note, preseason All-Americans came out within the last couple of days. Miami's got 2. One of them, no surprise, is Francis Mauigoa. And then Keelan Marion at kick returner is the other. This is a guy who could make more special teams impact than anyone Miami has had in years. I mean, we've been so spoiled over the years, whether it be someone like Duke Johnson, Roscoe Parrish, Devin Hester, the greatest to ever do it, Santana Moss. Miami's had some great kick returners over the years. Keelan Marion is going to try to follow in those footsteps. So yeah, players like that, we need to see surge on the real football field to earn those 90-plus grades on the digital football field this coming season. All right, let's answer some questions from Locked On Canes Insiders. This is a good one I wanted to start with from John and Davey, who says, has class of 2026 recruiting, has it gone about how you expected for Miami? If not, what are the big surprises or letdowns to this point? And listen, I know what Miami fans are saying out there, even though I'm on the final week of my marathon trip to Europe. I will be back in exactly 1 week, which will be the same day that the video game comes out. Coincidence? I'm not so sure about that. But, even from all the way across the pond over here in Italy, I hear, and the buzz, and I see what Miami fans are saying. They were so hot at the end of June. You've seen some players trending in other directions, though, early July. So a lot of Miami fans are a little bit down on recruiting. But in the big picture, John, I would say for right now, yes, with Miami trending in the top 10 in class of 2026 recruiting right now, kind of the lower half of that top 10, but in the top 10, that is where I expected the class to be in July. Like I expected Miami to be trending right about where they are. In terms of surprises, we'll start with the good surprises, pleasant surprises. Landing Jackson Cantwell back in late May was the biggest of those good surprises. A week before his commitment and in the week prior to it, Georgia looked like they had all the momentum. Miami was able to snatch that momentum back. You wouldn't be trending as high as you are right now if you hadn't landed the top prospect in the entire country. Jordan Campbell, who's long been committed to Miami, but him shutting down his recruitment and locking in with Miami, that was another pleasant surprise because his recruitment was wide open for a long time, and I was worried about him flipping away. So Miami locking him down was big. Miami flipping Vance Spafford from Georgia a couple weeks ago, that's probably going to go down as the second most significant win after Cantwell, unless Miami's able to maybe snag a Tristan Keys or something. But the Vance Spafford flip was a huge recruiting dub for Miami. So those are some of the positives. Like, I guess on the letdown side of things, and I think a lot of you would probably agree with this, not having a stronger claim for some of the top local players, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, not being able to lock down these areas is a little bit disappointing. I'm not even sure if I can blame Miami completely for that. Like Miami is in Cristobal and his staff because, we talk about this all the time with our recruiting overlord, Brian Smith, he's not a Miami guy, so he keeps this stuff a little more objective. He always says it, like South Florida prospects are some of the most difficult to cover, and they have a different mentality because some of them just want to leave home. Some of them want to wait till the very last minute, National Signing Day, which we're still like 5 months away from, by the way. But I guess my hope coming out of, top offense in the country last year and 10 wins would be Miami would have an easier time locking down some of the top local players. But, we don't really feel like that's the case right now. And, the negative trends, at least we think there have been negative trends for Calvin Russell, who's going to be announcing in 2 days, 5-star receiver out of Miami Northwestern. He's not really expected to pick Miami at this point. With that going on, that's not something I would have expected a few months ago. Like a few months ago, I would have told you, oh yeah, Miami's definitely going to find a way to lock down Calvin Russell. His mom went to Miami. She's in the Sports Hall of Fame. Like, how can you not land Russell? But over the past few months, those trends haven't been looking great. We'll see what he decides on July 5th. And so, okay, to put this like into perspective on not having an easier time locking down the local players, right now, as things stand July 3rd, Miami literally has 3 times as many verbal commits from Orlando, Florida, as they do from Miami-Dade County, Florida. 3-1 is the ratio. I don't think it's going to finish that way. I think Miami's going to end up having a lot more, players signing from Dade and Broward. Because again, sometimes the South Florida recruits end up waiting a little bit longer than players from other parts of the country. So I don't think it's necessarily going to finish that way, but that's where we are in July. 3 times as many players from Orlando committed as players from Miami. And yeah, this ties back to the Calvin Russell thing, but I guess I also would have thought that elite wide receiver recruiting would have been a little bit easier than it is. Miami's worked really hard and they've done well flipping Vance Spafford. Again, big time win. I'm also a big fan of Tyron Evans. But when it comes to like the Calvin Russell recruitment and just how like difficult the Tristan Keys recruitment has been, I know Miami is still in that one. And, some of the other receivers we've seen go in different directions. It's been an uphill climb. So we'll see how Miami can finish there. So I guess that's how I would say it. And, in terms of recruiting trends, things that are coming down in the upcoming days in terms of announcements, Devin Jackson safety who had been on Miami's radar. By the time some of you watch this, he may have already committed somewhere because I think that's happening today. But I'm not expecting him to land at Miami. He looks to be Oregon bound today. Calvin Russell, July 5th announcement. That one, we'll see what happens there because he seems to put out a lot of misdirection on where he may or may not be leaning. But we don't feel great. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope I'm wrong. Also, I think on July 5th, big-time defensive lineman Bryce Perry Wright is going to be announcing. Miami might have a shot there. But Clemson has been seen as the trending leader recently. I think Texas A&M is also in the mix for him. So that one could come down for the next 48 hours to a big-time battle there. And, I hope Miami can get that one done. But again, the trends have been for Clemson recently. Tight end Zachary Turner, who I think is announcing tomorrow. He's become an SMU lean, reportedly. On a positive, we have heard some confidence about possibly flipping cornerback Brody Jennings from Michigan. I don't know if he has a timeline, if that would happen sooner or later, but that is one that we feel pretty good about. But we'll keep our eyes on these recruiting trends. And of course, everyone wants to know about Derek Cooper. I don't know what his timeline looks like now. I still feel good about where Miami stands for Coop. And if you're talking about locking down the top local players, that's the biggest fish left on the board. Like Derek Cooper, that's the one you need to lock down. He was going to announce July 12th. He's postponed that indefinitely. He just wants to make sure he's completely ready before he makes an announcement. I still think Miami should be considered the trending leader, but we'll have to keep our fingers crossed because if the Hurricanes can get that one done, we're doing cartwheels. Maybe literally. I'll try to do a cartwheel. If Miami misses out on Cooper, it's going to sting. It's going to, feel like the way Jeremiah Smith felt a couple of years ago. It'll be that sort of thing. But hopefully Miami can get that one over the finish line. We got more to talk about, guys, on this episode. So why was I asked to compare Ken Dorsey to Cam Ward? We'll find out. You want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on Locked On Canes. Thank you for making us your first listen and your first watch. For your next listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs from Locked On Wolfpack and I, we're going to have an episode later on tonight. And Miami fans, you're going to want to listen to this next Locked On ACC because it's Miami preview time. So I'm going to let Kenton, I'm going to hand him the gavel, and he's going to be asking me questions and putting me on the hot seat as we preview Miami coming up. So make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. All right, so we get a question that says, hey, I wonder if on the show people would be open to listening to a segment comparing Cam Ward's stats to Ken Dorsey's stats the years that they both got invited to the Heisman. I'm really curious myself. All right, so the statistics that you were about to hear, folks, from Dorsey and from Cam Ward are a great reminder that a lot of things can change in 24 years in terms of the offensive style of football. Because I would say Ken Dorsey was objectively a great college quarterback and the perfect quarterback for Miami at that time. With all the talent you had, having somebody who was intelligent, deliberate, student of the game, obviously not a future NFL great, but Dorsey had enough physical tools to get the ball where it needed to go. Like, he was the perfect quarterback for that version of Miami. If you were to look at Dorsey's stats 24 years later, you would say, hey, this guy was a starter compared to the numbers you see getting put up. All right, so Dorsey was a Heisman finalist for 2 years. The first of those, 2001. He finished fourth in Heisman voting that year. He threw for 2,652 yards, 23 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Then he was a Heisman finalist, Ken Dorsey, second straight year in 2002. He finished, in 2001, he finished third in voting, not fourth. I don't want to shortchange Dorse. I think Joey Harrington, finished behind him that year or something like that. But he finished third. 2002, he finished fifth in voting. He was behind teammate Willis McGahee. They stole votes from each other, unfortunately. In that 2002 season, Dorsey's numbers looked a little more modern that year. He threw for 3,369 yards, 28 touchdowns, 12 interceptions that year. But here's Cam Ward. Heisman Trophy finalist 2024. Last season, Cam Ward threw for 4,313 yards, 39 touchdowns, and only 7 interceptions. So again, if you had a quarterback putting up those numbers in 2001, you would not only would you give them the Heisman, like you would name the trophy after. It would no longer be the Heisman; it would have been the Ward had he done that in 2001. That's how much. And again, and that's not to take anything away from Cam Ward, but obviously it's hard to compare numbers from this era to that era. And then if you rewind like 20 years, 25 years before Dorsey's era, it's even harder to compare because a lot of quarterbacks were running the option back in those days around the country. And just for fun, let's throw in Carson Beck last year, which was his supposed down year. So Carson Beck, everyone's freaking out about what he did last year. He actually had the same 28-12 touchdown interception ratio that Dorsey had in 2002. And Beck last year threw for 3,485 yards. So, if he can get back close to 4,000 yards, maybe Miami gets a quarterback at that Heisman ceremony 2 straight years. To answer some more questions here on Locked On Canes. All right. So our hermano from another Madre, Gilbert, wants to know. He says, hey, statistically, who were the most impactful players on defense for Miami last year? Do you expect the defense this upcoming season to have better stats than what the defense had last year? He says, personally, I don't think us Canes fans will ever have to see a defense that was as bad as last year's. I hope not, Gilbert, because last year, the defense literally cost them a playoff run. Like if the defense was respectable last year, Miami makes the CFP. All right, so in terms of like top defensive stats, so the guys who led Miami in sacks last year, I think you're going to see higher numbers this year. Tyler Barron, Akeem Mesidor, Simeon Barrow, they were co-leaders in sacks at 5.5 apiece. I think Miami's going to get somebody in double digits this year. Not that Mish Powell was consistently very good at safety, but he had some moments, including 5 interceptions. That was big. Miami needed those 5 INTs from him. So he was one of the statistical leaders. Easy for me to say. Kiko Mauigoa, he didn't have seemingly as impactful of a year last year than he did the year before, where he was just unreal in 2023, but he still managed 96 total tackles, which is more than I thought. He led the team with 96 total tackles last year in Kiko. And then I don't want to ignore, the stat sheet maybe doesn't reflect this as much because like when you think stats on defense, you're thinking tackles, interceptions, but coverage grades are also important. And O.J. Frederick was really impressive last year. He was the 4th highest graded freshman corner in the entire country. Allowed only 10 receptions for 80 yards and just 1 touchdown last year. He started the entire year, and he only gave up 10 receptions, 80 yards, and 1 touchdown. So that was really impressive. As far as this year goes, yeah, I think a lot of the stats are going to look better. I think Miami could very well have a double-digit sacker because they have good personnel on the defensive line and a more D-line friendly system, a more direct, aggressive approach to rushing the passer. Last year, as we mentioned, Bain was on and off with injury. Tyler Barron was inconsistent. Like he was either getting multiple sacks or getting no sacks in certain games. I think this year, Bain or Mesidor probably going to lead the team with 10 or more sacks, one of those two. I think Hayden Lowe, as a true freshman, could be someone to watch on the edge. He looks really good already. I think the defensive secondary should be dramatically better with players like Xavier Lucas, Zechariah Poyser, O.J. Frederick back. Jacobe Thomas came in through the portal. I like some of Miami's linebackers. I think Mohamed Touré, the transfer from Rutgers, could be a big difference maker. I think Wesley Basaint is a senior, money year for him. And I think Popo Aguirre with more opportunities this year as a redshirt sophomore. So, yeah, in a more aggressive and direct defense under Corey Heatherman, I think some of Miami's defensive stats are going to look better. But individual stats, I don't care about as much. The stats that I really care about are points allowed, third down percentage, which is really key, and red zone defense. And of course, yardage given up. But even the yardage given up overall is a little deceiving because you want to win on third down. You want to, keep the points down. Scoring defense is the most important thing. And red zone defense is huge. So those are, the team stats more than the individual stats are the ones that I absolutely want to see shine for Miami. I want to thank everyone so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch. And again, make sure you check out the next episode of Locked On ACC because it's going to be mostly about Miami. Kenton is going to put me under the hot interrogation lights. Remember, I'm in Europe and there's no air conditioning anywhere. So I'm going to be sweating. Like wherever I am, I will be sweating when KG puts me under the lights and he grills me about Miami. We'll have our Miami preview coming up on the next episode of Locked On ACC. We are Locked On Canes. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Be sure to smash the like button, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Odyssey, wherever you get your pods, and we'll talk to you again next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.